So, we're gonna be done with it this video, except there's a later mission in another area that brings us back here. But I am Mycroft Holmes.
And I'm Falconeer111.
And we're back with Secret World Legends. This is probably the last video. This is the last video dedicated to this area, to Scorched Desert.
Nice.
There is a later quest that brings us back here, in which we get to see the inside of the dungeon, the Ankh, and get some really interesting backstory from a caricatured German scientist who has the caricatured German sign. He sounds like Arnim Zola.
Yeah.
From the Avengers movies.
He may be a good opportunity for me to bitch about Schliemann because I have plenty to say about Heinrich Schliemann, who I'll save him for that. And
I have no idea who that is, but I'm assuming it's a Jewish history thing.
Nope. He's the guy that discovered Troy by bombing it.
Oh, that asshole!
Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah. So
he blew up an important historical site and dug ditches straight through it with no real archaeology experience.
Yeah.
Oh god.
He was a businessman who thought he was a very classic businessman who thought that made him good at everything else. And his discoveries were were valuable, and his complete disregard and disdain for any kind of actual scientific procedure cost us immense amounts of knowledge over the heads of people who were telling him to stop, because he's a great businessman, which means he must be good at everything.
Oh god. An Elon Musk, you say?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, he's the latest and greatest of those. But it's an old archetype. He's just, had Schliemann had a Twitter account, it would have been just an absolute nightmare. I can't even imagine.
So this video has some issues, I will admit. Part of this is due to the investigation mission we have to do. Part of this is due to another player cleared out the enemies I had to defeat for a quest, so I had to run around and wait for them to respawn.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the hazards of an MMO.
Yeah, Secret World isn't quite dead. It's still,
I mean, they intentionally made the player cap on zones very small, so it feels like a single-player game.
Yeah. But, they are keeping, the autonomic functions haven't completely shut down yet. They're still it's still some twitching. And twitching isn't.
I saw a lot of people on for as we're recording this, the anniversary event is going on, which I have done previously in this LP.
Yeah.
Go see my videos on Hatekeeper and the Golems of Gaia. But, yeah, that's the lady right there who cleared out the bad guys I need to kill. But, there were a lot of people who still come on for the anniversary. I always see people in Agartha no matter what time I'm on. I could be on at, midnight or 2 a.m., and there's still people in Agartha.
Yeah.
So this has a following, and I wish it would get a follow-up or more content.
Yeah. I think it
probably won't.
I think
at the very least, it's getting a 5e D&D adaptation for some reason.
Is it? I
yes.
wish I could say I'm surprised. And I wish... that is my pet peeve.
It seems like it would be a better fit for GURPS, honestly.
It would be a better fit for all kinds of things, but people like Dungeons and Dragons has something like 90% of the market share or more for tabletop RPGs, so that's all people think. Even though it's actually a very specific system that's meant for playing a relatively specific set of settings, and people just try to hack it because they don't care enough to learn something new. That's what they're used to, so they don't want to bother learning anything. Just like for Secret World, given the nature of the bees, I could imagine an Apocalypse World hack. It would
Call of Cthulhu?
No, no. Do you know Powered by the Apocalypse?
I have heard of Apocalypse World. I've never played it.
Yeah, there's a whole. It's very storyteller, very story and character driven. It wouldn't be a great fit, but it would be a workable one.
I could see
GURPS.
something, like I said, I could see something like this working with GURPS or Call of Cthulhu.
I definitely not GURPS. GURPS is too, like GURPS. In order to get it to go as fast as like the power scale goes for GURPS, and this is speaking as someone who adores GURPS. GURPS is how I got into tabletop. Do you know how I got into tabletop role-playing games?
No. I was introduced by Call of Cthulhu.
I was introduced to tabletop role-playing games by finding the GURPS Space source book in Barnes & Noble in middle school, buying it and spending hours randomly generating, cause it has tables in the backs for randomly generating planets and aliens, and just doing that forever. And then later I stumbled across 4chan, the 4chan's TG board, and that gave me context.
TG used to be really good.
It used to be good.
Pol has pretty much destroyed 4chan.
Yeah. It's... Yeah, that's another thing, but... So
Pol has actually destroyed MLP.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, that's how bad it is.
Yeah. Like... but, like, so speaking of someone who loves GURPS, GURPS would be pretty terrible for the secret world.
Yeah, GURPS doesn't handle magic that well.
I think... Let me think. Like... I can...
Given the nature of bees, it would probably have to be some sort of thing that would work well for superheroes.
Yeah, and there's a few systems that work.
You could probably do Scion.
Yeah, you'd have to hack it like crazy because Scion itself, the powers are just too specific. But the core structure makes sense.
I seem to remember there used to be a World War II superheroes game.
What was it? Wild Talents? No, the Wild Talents is a sequel. World on Fire. Stolze is the guy who made it. I don't know if you recognize that name.
I don't recognize any of what you're saying, but I remember there used to be one, and I briefly looked at the book, and they were all pretty much low enough effort powers on the average. Not low effort, but low powers on the average, that you could probably do something like this.
Yeah. There's one big World War II superhero book that I know about, and that is, I think it's called like World on. It has like a, has a sequel that's set in the modern day. That's called Wild Talents. It's the same. No, different thing.
Okay.
Yeah, Wildcard. No George R.R. Martin here, but
Oh, Wildcards is his superhero thing, right?
Yeah, but it's a similar name, similar concept, still different. And like this setting's notable for you can't play people who have super intelligence because they're all back at base doing like being living computers. And in the Axis' case, they're silently sabotaging the war effort because their brains are all super enhanced everywhere, which includes the parts that handle empathy and compassion. So the Allies' equivalents are doing humanitarian work as they coordinate the war effort, and their Axis equivalents are actively, quietly sabotaging things and working with the resistance.
So what I'm doing right now in the video is just waiting and passing time until the bad guys respawn so I can finish the quest.
Yeah.
That is the nature of the beast when you're doing an MMO.
Mm-hmm. We'll see if your editor.
And yeah, my editor doesn't cut anything out. He just syncs it up and he syncs it up and edits it to the video.
Yeah. What the hell was that statue? Is that statue? There was the statue in the middle of the trees back there. Is that a thing, or is it just
a statue? That's an enemy.
Oh, that's an enemy just standing there?
Yeah, because I'm too high level, they're not aggroing on me.
Oh, I see. Yeah, she looked like a statue, just sort of watching, staring off into the distance, unmoving. Yeah.
That's the idle. That's what idling NPCs look like.
Yeah.
You can see when I've passed on the guy on fire. I've passed him a couple times.
Yeah, damn. I was like, wait, is that something interesting we haven't talked about? Yeah, her. Yeah,
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 no,
no,
she's
she's
just
an
an
enemy.
enemy.
Yeah.
I'm just too high level for her to aggro on me. That stops when you hit the level cap. So you can never run through zones of 50 level 50 enemies or level like 45 to level 50 enemies and not get aggroed by them.
Mhm.
So that's fun for traversing zones.
Well, I guess they gotta, they gotta put some roadblocks up in front of the powerful. But it does
I
sound like
mean,
it just, for very high level characters who are going through there, it just does sound like you
there is
just,
a level cap, there's a level cap and there's an equipment
yeah,
cap, and the
exactly.
equipment cap starts the moment. The equipment cap is something you're probably never going to reach because you have to grind a lot. Like I am only grinding equipment to get one last mission unlocked because there are 5 missions that unlock after you've done all the story content, but you have to be a certain item power for them to unlock.
Mhm.
So, as I said in the previous video, the easiest way to do that is once you get access to the spy and personnel thing,
Mhm.
just spam those missions and like log in every day, once or twice a day to put those in and get those done.
Yeah, it's busy work, but I mean, it's an MMO to some extent. Like, ideally, there's a strong social element there. So,
That really doesn't pan out for this game. It does pan out for the other game I'm playing, Lord of the Rings Online, but right now I'm just
yeah, I looked that up.
stuck trying to find people to run an instance with me because it's a fellowship instance and not a single player instance.
Yeah, I remember I remember running across that and seeing that that game is like 20 years old and the last expansion was like in 2019 or something.
Even more recently than that, it was a couple months ago.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, they
That
put
is
out
some.
a new level 20 to 30 zone called Yonder Shire, which is a part of the Shire that is more wild, and you got to stop Lawful Sackville Baggins from being a dick everywhere.
Prometheus Initiative.
Yeah.
They knew how to take care of their own. Water, food.
Yeah, the Shire areas
Even a crate of scotch.
really it's just Lawful Sackville,
That wasn't for
whatever
us.
the evil Hobbit guy is, just being a
Sackville
dick.
Baggins.
I know he's Sackville Baggins, but he's got like first name like Lothlo or
Mhm.
something. But he's just being a dick constantly for those Shire areas.
And now we're left without answers.
Because they gotta have a
I don't even
villain,
know what the
and that's
Prometheus
about,
Initiative's doing out here.
unless you're talking like,
He's the only Hobbit villain we're given
Yeah.
in the Lord of the Rings, because I think he was like head of the occupying, like the figurehead of Saruman's occupying forces or something. It's been forever since I read Lord of the Rings.
I mean, he wasn't even the figurehead. He was just kind of like the local. Because I remember it being basically run like Saruman ran the Shire like a mobster, just like trying to fleece his victims and run protection rackets. I think it was something like uh, a mobster, but I don't remember either.
I'm not even sure they're
So this
planning to do
cutscene
that.
is basically this lady going, so we pretty much got set up to fail here.
Where to hit us.
Uh,
All the hallmarks of an inside job.
we can't contact HQ. There's no rescue coming.
They're still around, and they have
We're still getting hit.
resources.
We're kind of fucked.
So much for drugs.
And then she says this.
You guys hiring?
Are you guys hiring? Yeah. Probably not former Orochi. Oh, actually, no. Scratch that. If the Illuminati would definitely take her if she defected to them.
I could probably make a good case for at least contingently on a contract basis getting the Templar to at least get them the fuck out of here.
I The Templar aren't that generous. They're the good guys in this setting, but that doesn't make them good guys. Like, there's
Okay, that's true, but I can at least get them to airdrop some ammo.
like airdrop some ammo if in exchange for taking orders to die in huge numbers to the filth. But like,
Well, they're pretty much already accomplishing that.
yeah, that's true.
They're occupying the filth's attention right now. Pretty much, you want to keep that going.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I like.
See, I was thinking about that. Okay, so we have to log in here to this computer, but we need a passcode. Luckily, there's one written in blood right there.
It's very convenient. No, but terrible security practice. Imagine one of the fucked up filth zombies had been able to read. Like, yeah, I can. I mean, maybe it would it. If they had favors to call in, the Templar might pay attention. If they were willing to basically barter everything, and were lucky enough to impress whatever it is the AI that runs the Illuminati. Spoilers for that campaign. The Illuminati would definitely let them in. They would have to be lucky though, and the dragon, you would have to flip a slightly racist coin, and whichever side it came up would be whatever their model said would be what they did that day, which is what they do every day. Yeah, there aren't very, the Templars are they're not quite good guys by default, but they're good guys very much by comparison. And they used to be racist and imperialist, but they've been purging themselves of that recently. And that is explicitly why they are pretty much the only, like, unless you count the dragon for some reason, they're the only arguably good force in the setting. And the Council of Venice,
And as mentioned in the thread, the dragon is doing all this so they can control the world.
Yeah.
So.
And granted, the Templar would not object if that happened, and they are certainly out for power too. But that isn't actually their primary objective. That's just one of several.
Look, there used to be a fake Cthulhu for President campaign, and its motto was "Why vote for the lesser evil?"
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Templar are pretty much the Tau of this situation.
Yeah,
okay,
that's
they're the
fair.
lesser evil.
Yeah, and in fairness, the Tau are also communists who run gulags.
They're not communists. People keep saying they're communists. They have a caste system. They can't be communists.
I mean, well, strictly speaking, the Imperium doesn't line up with standard fascist doctrine either, but you can still see where it got a lot of its inspiration from. And also worth noting...
That's because it's the medieval Catholic Church in space.
Yeah, but there's...
Okay, I accidentally glitched somewhere around here. Oh, yeah, right here. I can't move.
Fly.
I can't jump. So I have to teleport out. Thank God I can teleport.
Yeah, there's... I was playing Fallout 4 a while back, and I got stuck... I got myself stuck in the geometry in the glowing sea with, Radaway, only so much Radaway, just sitting there jumping, and no, it wasn't even stuck. It was like a part, like a dip in a cave I couldn't jump out of. So I was just sitting. I had to like reload an earlier save from couple hours before, because I just fucked everything. It was unsalvageable just because of because of Todd Howard's malevolence.
So, are you going to play Starfield?
Probably not.
I absolutely am, because I cannot get enough of Bethesda's insanity.
I mean, I'm not going to play it. It has nothing to do with the actual game.
Oh right, you're disabled. I forgot. I apologize.
Like, I mean, I can play limited amounts of action games, but it's very painful to do it for very long periods if it's not like the Fallout games with VATS, with long periods of downtime and like doing inventory sorting, that is at the razor edge of my ability to play these games. Like I could do Fallout 4. I'm not sure I could do Skyrim. And I almost given how strongly AAA is going into into not like live, but like going away from more thoughtful RPG experiences, there's no way that Starfield is gonna be playable for me. Like, I
Well,
cannot imagine
I
a scenario in which they go towards the style of gameplay that would accommodate me.
well, the new Baldur's Gate is out, and I believe that's still turn-based.
Um, the Baldur's Gate, I've never played it. Also, part of the issue, gaming equipment's expensive, and given how little of it I can actually play, I don't invest much money in, I'm not going to buy a PS3 to play Persona 5 Royal, and
No,
that's it.
it's on
PS5.
PC.
And PCs are even worse. Like, how much?
Okay, that's fair enough.
Like,
Come to gloat.
at least
We
I can
spent
be.
like $5,000 on my new gaming PC, and that was a scratch-built
We fall, you
thing.
fall.
Yeah.
Most of that was the
I can tell
3090,
you this,
Yeah.
and I'd probably get fired for it.
and I had to like lurk a Discord to see when they came on sale. So
Action detail for the science guys.
Yeah.
You've heard about the Prometheus
Like,
initiative?
my current laptop I
And I knew
bought
something was going on.
2019, I
I
think,
But we're trained
and it was
to
okay
you
then.
could probably play the original Baldur's Gate. That came out in the 90s.
Oh yeah, I could
That's on,
definitely. Well,
good
the
old
thing about the
games.
original Baldur's Gate is
The
that it really isn't
Corsians, the
turn-based.
white coats and suits
It's
of the Prometheus initiative were digging over
it's got this
mountains
kind of
to
like
the other side of the mountains.
it's like
They were
the
bringing
same thing.
containers
It's an
from
old
different
BioWare
planets.
game. It's like if you
Tried
play
to
Knights of the Old
invaders.
Republic.
Seemed like they were
What's
all
going on
over
under the
us.
surface is
Teams
just
were deep
Dungeons and
underground,
Dragons or a
and
version
they
of
came
Dungeons
out
and
with stuff
Dragons,
that
but it's
even
being
I
done
thought
in real
was
time.
powerful
And
dangerous.
you are actively moving around, lining things up, and clicking on a bunch of things all the time.
Violence.
And
Well,
while you're setting
I believe
stuff
in a
up.
previous video I mentioned
First, the
uh,
incident down in the
gaming
caves.
gear for
To go into
disabled
full detail
people.
there.
And yeah, that does
Along with the
exist.
base camp. We had to
But it's
pull
also
back.
that is also
And
well,
some kind of
not all of it is
sabotage.
expensive,
Somehow
but that's
inside
Like
the
I
process, wiped
I
out
mentioned
the
this
teams of
in a
the other
previous
side
video.
of
I
the gate.
briefly had a
The white
relationship with a
coats,
paraplegic
suits,
woman.
supervisors,
Lovely woman, but I
uniformed
couldn't
personnel
get past the
everywhere.
physical issue.
And the shipping crates? Gone.
But I did
We
help
had to
her
try to
find,
secure whatever was
like
left
she was
inside the suit.
paraplegic. She could
There was
only
nothing.
move her head.
We had to retreat.
I helped
Not a
her find
survivable situation.
video game peripherals that they
Too
could
bad we
program
couldn't scrap the
very
console.
simply
Could have come in useful with the
to
Dragon
let
Ball
her
Z
use
too.
her chin and her mouth to
Something's gone very,
play
very,
a
very wrong.
platformer.
We haven't heard a peep from Mission Control.
That's
So-
fair. My worry, my big issue with like that with head-based stuff. First of all, I've got part of it's the Ehlers-Danlos skeletal thing. Sitting up straight's painful. So the sort of position I need to take, like the sort of thing that most people would take for that, and you basically have to sit up straight and still, and those together are actually really difficult for me. You could probably adjust it for me, but like there's a lot of basically anything making. And at the end of the
Yeah,
day, I don't like
okay.
platformers, and the sort of thing I like tend to be like.
I'm just saying you should investigate your options, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
what I said last time.
Just
Anyway,
in
this
case
is going to be very annoying.
Yeah.
This is going to be very annoying to people watching. I fuck up what I'm supposed to do. And then I look up what I'm supposed to do, and I spend a full minute actually writing down what I have to do. Because this is a investigation mission with text adventures.
Oh my god. Oh, wonderful. But like, it actually, okay, I do want to quickly clarify. There are a lot of people out there having this conversation who would be offended by this conversation. I'm actually enjoying talking about this. So I do want to put that forward as we go forward.
Oh, I didn't mean to be rude if I came off as rude. I was just like...
You weren't.
Okay.
I did want to clarify. In case that was like, in case you were you were backing away from the conversation with that reason in mind.
I'm similar duly disabled. I can't do physical labor because I have a heart condition. I have autism and bipolar disorder,
Yeah.
I if I was offending you, I probably wouldn't have been able to tell until you told me to stop. Like
Yeah,
I have that autism like that.
yeah.
It's not a big deal.
But,
I
like,
prefer someone actually telling me when I am offending them rather than relying on context clues.
yeah. I will say, like,
But so this is a series of text adventures you have to find in the environment based on clues you're given in the text adventure. So first you have to solve the
that's
text adventure.
sloppy.
Then you have to go to that place in the world and get and find the next text adventure. By
That's
the way, it isn't limited to Scorched Desert. I also go to Agartha, Seoul, London, Venice, and Savage Coast.
that's.
By
I
the
won't say
way,
that's awful design, but it's not
this
great
mechanic
design.
comes back in Tokyo. There's one of these in Tokyo too.
Yeah.
So eventually, after I find out, like I initially don't realize that there's more than one text adventure. So I look it up and I write down everything I need to do in the first text adventure on like a receipt I still have on my desk because I haven't cleaned my desk. So right now I am literally writing down when I was recording this. I'm literally writing this all down. Eventually, when I find out there's another one, I just give up and use my phone, which I should have done in the first place.
Yeah.
So
If
I apologize. I
modern
apologize
problems
for this
require.
walk.
Yeah, that's
I apologize for this walkthrough, this terrible ass walkthrough.
like, God, and look at that.
The ones that have an asterisk you don't actually have to do.
Yeah.
But you can imagine me doing this knowing that if I screw up this recording, I have to wait 8 hours to do another recording.
Oh, this game.
It's good, but it's bad.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
some
an.
of the decisions they make.
Some of the decisions they did so many experiments and some of them failed.
But I respect them for trying and mostly succeeding.
Yeah, and
Like,
there's a
this
few.
isn't great. The platforming isn't great. The stealth isn't great. Everything else is really good.
Yeah, and it's a lot. The combat is just okay. The story is good. The
Well,
atmosphere is good. Some of the writing is
well,
good.
this is the refined combat that actually let me play the damn game. Because
Yeah.
the original combat I could not get past. It was very bad.
I don't know. I enjoyed
You
the original
had no, you
combat.
actually had no base attack.
Yeah, you had like
You could only do things with cooldowns. So
yeah.
if you weren't doing a thing or before your cooldowns ran out, you weren't doing any damage. You're just standing there getting hit.
I never had that problem. I always kept there were like always baseline. I I think it was badly designed, but it's the kind of badly designed that happened to click for me. I think it didn't click for most people because I had like base abilities that I mixed and matched from all over that big ass 9-part grid, and I would just use and switch between, and I found it very repetitive, but not unplayable. So do you know who designed this? Is that like
No,
because
I
no,
don't.
not like
If you're
okay. To clarify, not the game in universe. Who designed this text adventure?
I don't know.
Because who would write this? Like, who would write a whole text adventure, having you fuck around
Multiple
with
text
Todoroki?
adventures.
Yeah. So this is absolutely not the sort of thing the Orochi would like allow any of their employees to do. And who else would know how to do it?
Well, the next one of these I'll spoil and say that it's to find some people. They call themselves the Wasps, and they are imprisoned or rebel bees.
Oh,
Now, I don't know if that means they also made this or what, but the next time we do something like this, it is to be contacted by a group of rebel bees.
Like, yeah, I never
Which
ran into
and
the
you're
wasps.
given the option to like sort of join them, and I was like, don't
Why
wasps
would?
eat bees?
Yeah, I mean, don't wasps eat bees, and B, like, I understand like the need for freedom and the idea for the concept of self determination, as opposed to being tossed around and thrown into the meat grinder by faceless, disturbing organizations. But who do they have as backers? You know, like they're just how many bees do they have? If they have thousands of bees, they can take over the world. If they don't, they're just another faction that's going to get played against other factions.
And now I have to go find the next thing, and it takes me a little while. I think I actually look it up.
And I
So a lot of this is just going to be me running around finding something and then going, open mailbox, take letter.
it's just
You
stunning
you are
LPA.
standing in front of a White House. There's a mailbox.
I remember my dad talking about playing the original adventure back when it came on its own. Like it had a machine because what the equivalent of PCs at the time were room sized, so they couldn't make personal things. They had to make its own little personal computer just for the game.
Oh, I
And
was referencing Zork
but like
because I remember playing Zork.
I
I actually recently replayed Zork Grand Inquisitor. I remember every step of how to win that game.
yeah, I never text adventures are not something. There are certain kinds of logic my brain just can't wrap its head
Oh, Zork
around.
Grand Inquisitor was well after they switched to
Oh
graphics.
yeah, but like text adventures and point and click adventures both. And I know they're famous for not actually having any logic, but like I just find that the guesswork frustrating. And even when it's even and I'm autistic too. I never understand what the game designers actually want, even if it makes sense after it's explained to me. It usually has to be explained. So I just I don't know. I'd rather go with a strategy game or a RPG or an action game. Well, I used to go for an action game, but but like I'm I am hesitant. Ultimately a big part of the reason why I'm not investing anything in like gaming equipment is because I have a good job and I'm on my own and I'm still struggling to make my ends meet. I want to my
Mm,
savings are slowly ticking up, but I want them ticking up faster because if I lose this job for whatever reason, I don't know when I'm going to find another one. So I'm just not spending money, and this is all like there's so much of this is like hardware and hardware that is hard to find and very specific. So I just don't have the fucks to give to invest any time and energy in it. I just stare at the screen and shrug. I have a huge Steam library and I only use a few games that I really enjoy. But like I can still play like
well,
right
that's
now. Okay,
same for me, but
like right now, I am currently playing Persona 4 Gold, the PC port, and having a great time and in no pain from it. And I can spend hours on that game just going around doing the various things because it's half of it is a visual novel, half of it is a visual novel, just as much as half of it is a RPG. And there's enough time to breathe. And with the right equipment, I can do something like Civilization requires too much, too many fine movements, but something like a lot of grand strategy, a lot of paradox games don't. So I can play Crusader Kings 2 or whatever just fine. Like and I am so looking. There's a Persona 5 port coming out, I think in October. I'm so looking forward to that You have no idea. I that is one of my favorite. I've Persona 5 is one of my favorite games ever, and I've never had a chance to play Royal. So that is, I'm just sort of the all ears emote, just watching that timer tick down. I don't know if you've. I think we've talked about this because I always talk a lot about Persona. I don't think you've played it.
I was not a fan of Persona. Like, I understand what happens in Persona, and I've tried to play it. I just did not get into it because I'm not a visual novel fan.
Yeah, it's too much
Like,
people, too much talking, too much and that specific kind of Japanese uh, conversation. That's
yes, that's half ellipsis.
yeah, it's half ellipsis. People repeat everything. Um,
Like, that's fine for Metal Gear because the voice acting makes it, and it's also insane. But
yeah,
I just couldn't get through it for Persona.
yeah. Like
I mean, I say that as someone who has watched Chip Cheesum's LP of Metal Gear Solid 4 multiple times.
yeah, Metal Gear Solid. Yeah, if you're talking about extremely Japanese dialogue, that sounds like a very good game to start with. But yeah, I can understand that as being a stopping point for Persona games. But
I
I mean,
remember.
I have literally LP'd multiple visual novels. That does not faze me. I don't think I've actually LP'd a Japanese visual novel though. Oh, whatever.
It's because they're all terrible.
Well, okay. One, yeah. I mean, go play Sayo no Uta and then come and punch me in the face for recommending that you go play Sayo no Uta. And there are people who know what I'm talking about. I've not played it, and I don't recommend you googling it because it's horrifying, but beautiful, but
Oh,
horrifying.
it's that one.
Yeah,
It's the Cho'Gath one.
yeah. I think that's maybe the one where like the guy has the condition where everything looks really gross except for the one pretty girl who's implied to be horrifying.
Yeah, that one. I
That
know
one.
that one.
Yeah, that one. That like there are good ones out there. It's just it's like it's the video game medium in general. It's it can be art, but the vast majority of it is low art at best. And of course, you have and Japanese is a wildly different language to English, and you have a lot of weebs who are dead set on who think that a literal translation is the best possible translation because that it's the closest to Japanese, and they can't speak any Japanese, so people try and split the difference, and it doesn't work very well. But
And we lost connection to the server.
Secret World, everybody.
I've
This
had
brings
more
back
trouble.
fond
I've
memories.
barely had any trouble 100%ing this fucking game. And just these areas in Scorched Desert, I have had trouble with disconnection. I've never had trouble with disconnection.
Well, they saved it up just for you, just for now, just for us right now. I bet nobody else in the server is getting disconnected. It's just you, out of spite.
Yeah, at this point I am just directly copying what my phone says.
That is, God, it's just thrilling gameplay. I remember watching a video essay on what happened, why text adventures and video games. Like, did you know? Okay, you are you familiar with zero punctuation?
Yes.
Do you know he's not only is he still around, but he's like, like he's moved on with the times and he's actually like good now. Like he
I never
used to be
thought he was
awful.
bad.
But what? He was very ableist back in the day. He has
Oh.
um he's pretty effectively and efficiently moved on. He's good now. And he was always funny. He was like, like how Dan Carlin was never like nice, but he was always fair. and the zero punctuation was it. What I wouldn't say that it was always fair, but it was usually fair. It wasn't, right winger shock comedy. And these days,
Yeah, I
it's
don't like
still
Dan Carlin since he started his series on the Russian Civil
wait,
War.
not
He's
Dan. Wait, George Carlin, not Dan Carlin. George Carlin, like
Oh,
the comedian.
okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, I know him.
Yeah, like how George Carlin, he was rarely nice. He was rarely like polite, but he was always honest and fair in the way he evaluated things, so it didn't really matter.
Yes.
It's these days zero punctuation is a lot. It is a lot nicer than you'd expect, and it still somehow manages to be really funny and also very insightful. But he's doing video essays now, and one of like he basically just reads and somebody else does the animations for these essays, and one of them was like about the evolution, what happened to text adventures and adventure games, and is basically said there were originally two branches of gaming. There were video games, which were built for consoles, which were action based and targeted at children mostly, or at least at like, either at children or at arcade players. And there were computer games, which were built for office workers, the sort of people who would have computers that were dedicated to other things and that they could just play a game on the side. And those tended to be much more thoughtful, much wordier, with a stronger emphasis on story and clever solutions. And adventure games came out of computer games, while most modern genres um, either originated in or like were matured in video games. And they a lot like the basic structure of a text adventure exists because you can use it with a keyboard and it requires no graphics technology to render. It was a product of its time and it produced great things for its time, but it's something that is now only like
Niche interest.
yeah, it's like some people still do successfully make black and white movies because they use the black and white for the visual effect. But if they're you don't make a movie that's black and white because like there isn't a black and white genre. If you try to make a movie imitating black and white movies that is black and white, then you kind of miss the point. And a lot of people's approach to text adventures just boils down to trying to emulate old text adventures and doing it badly because they are taking all the parts that don't work anymore and that never worked and that were just like, the constraints of the machines at the time. So it turns out if you have better options, sometimes things just suck. And that goes for a lot of text adventures. Oh, there's still like, um, a lot of them still have value. It's just you can do better things now. Unless
I
you
mean,
have
I'd
like,
love a new Zork.
well, yeah. I mean, but then you say you love a new Zork. You'd love a new edition of something you already love. I
Well, I don't mean the text adventure kind. I mean the point and click adventure kind.
and fair enough, but like the point still stands. They're
Yeah,
adventure.
you have to like Zork's sort of goofy nature to like
Yeah,
Zork.
and you like something that
Zork
already
exists
exists and more
because
of it.
Zork exists because there was a genre that became popular and they made a slightly goofy parody of it.
Hmm.
And that parody was Zork.
And because it's one of my favorite things to watch happen in media. Sorry, can you still hear me? I had to adjust my
Yeah.
position. Um, one of my favorite things to happen when I'm observing media is when a parody gets so popular it becomes the norm for a genre, and it sets genre standards. Like you can like Neon Genesis Evangelion was explicitly an attempt to rip apart a lot of the assumptions of mecha anime, and it had became foundational to a whole generation of much darker mecha anime. And a lot of text adventures after Zork got really goofy and really comedy focused, and that had always been present, but it changed the course of the industry. And you look, this
I
happens over
mean,
and over again.
I remember the parody of Zork. It was called Pork.
Yeah.
It wasn't a porn parody either. It was just called Pork.
Yeah.
Someone sat down and said there needs to be a parody of the parody.
Because they weren't thinking of it as a parody at the time, I guarantee you. Because it was just a genre standard. Because it's a titan of the field, so you parody it. I'm trying to
I
think. Well, I
spent
mean,
some time in Seoul picking up lore, but first I stopped to pick up this lore. To get all the lore in Seoul, you have to do a bunch of platforming that's really difficult, so I make a few attempts and then give up. I also wander around because I don't know where I'm supposed to go because there's no quest marker,
mm-hmm.
and I wasn't really paying attention to the text adventure.
Yeah. They have to have realized the bulk of players doing investigation missions at this point in the game are just looking up the solutions on their in-game browser. Like I admire their dedication to the bit, but there does come a point where I'm not sure how much of their player base is following along. So I don't know. I could very well be wrong. Maybe there really are hordes of players who that's their investigation missions are their thing, and they get really mad at
Well, you
people
can
who
only
use
do an
walkthroughs.
investigation mission. You can only do an investigation mission once.
Yeah.
Like all these missions are repeatable, but you can only really do them once.
Or if you have a bad memory, you can only really do them every several years. Because and that, which is not exactly the sort of thing MMOs are built for.
There's a reason no one ever redoes the investigation missions.
Yeah.
They are just too much of a fucking hassle.
And how would you? How would you make? I can imagine randomizing it, but either eventually people run out of randomized options, or you really randomize it, and occasionally it just doesn't make sense. Oh, have I talked about the Dadaists yet? Go back to a previous subject about parody, because I love the story of the Dadaists.
I'm familiar with Dada. Yes, I consider Aqua Teen Hunger Force to be the most Dadaist form of entertainment.
Do you know why the movement ended? What killed it?
Surrealism.
No. Well, I mean, that's exactly the thing, because Dada it was started by artists, but it was only partly an art movement. It was also a political movement that had a lot of connections to stuff like anarchism, and it was very much a reaction to the excesses of Europe at the time, around 1900. It they really, really, it was an attempt to discredit the concept of art and the concept of class and the concept of taste by satirizing it and destroying it and basically collectively asserting that whatever shit they came up with was art, but they were artists and they couldn't help themselves but try and assign actual meanings that made sense to their stuff. And eventually they realized not only were people gradually starting to take them seriously, but they were being inspired to make art by their not art. And eventually surrealism came and overtook them. And these people who started explicitly trying to tear down the artistic establishment found they had become the artistic establishment. And it kind of destroyed them. They kind of fell apart and drifted onto surrealism or left or died. But most of them those that died didn't die for Dada related reasons. But it is, and it's kind of there is a sort of beautiful irony to people's definitions of art being so flexible that they just sort of the art world just ate Dadaism alive and didn't even and barely even noticed. In the long term, the short term, they were really very offended by them. But in the long term they just assimilated Dadaism, and now you have art that is directly inspired by Dada, which was built to try and discredit the concept of art. And I will never get over
Well, it could have been worse. They could have gone on to become the futurists.
that.
Have you seen that futurist restaurant menu thing?
No.
Okay, so Futurism was a primarily Italian art movement
Hmm.
that had heavy influence on Italian fascism.
Hmm.
It was all about speed and death and glory and just this. How do you explain it? This nihilistic lust for nothingness. It was all about modernism, and they loved racing cars and airplanes and stuff like that. And but they had a cultural side that attempted things with food because they were Italian, and they made a futurist restaurant, and every food you eat is like a simultaneously food and an art piece, and it's just a really weird menu.
I am.
You should absolutely Google it after this because it is hilarious.
Yeah, I am.
I believe there's one that's like you eat this and you're also being simultaneously stroked by feathers, and it's like what are you trying to accomplish?
That is. I'm only vaguely familiar with Italian futurism, but like
Yeah, now watch me
it's.
wander around here for a while trying to find the fucking SD card because it's tiny.
let's, yeah, let's go look at realistically proportioned tiny fucking things.
There's a reason other MMOs do not have this. It's literally hidden by the fucking keyboard.
Yeah, that is that's just terrible design. This game, this game is. It would be wonderful if it was all good, but it isn't.
I feel its flaws make it more real.
I don't know.
Like, yeah, it it has problems. That means it was developed by a team of people.
I
They
don't know. There's a.
tried things. Not all the things worked. I appreciate that.
I mean, I hear that and it sounds like you're talking about somebody you're dating. Like, I am it's I appreciate that in a person, but this is supposed to be something that I'm interacting with. And like there is a certain
Okay,
amount of jank
I
is
can
charming.
understand that.
A certain amount of jank is charming, but like
See,
stuff like that is
the
not
thing is,
fun or
moment to
interesting.
moment, the thing is, this is annoying. But in the overall context of a game that takes you how many hours to complete altogether, something like this becomes a blip.
And to be fair, and there's no way there MMOs are too big to not have jank and stupid decisions in them. There's the simple volume makes perfect design impossible. What are
Now
they?
I have
Are
to
they
go to London
playing?
and kill myself.
Are they playing like security footage? I mean, is that?
No, I think they look like they're playing. I was thinking this as I was watching. I think they're playing like 1942.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I think you might be right. Yeah, that's. At the moment you said that, I saw the planes, the little tiny planes. So yeah, and that talking about genres that don't exist anymore. Like outside of Toho, I don't know. Well, and bullet hell shooters, can't think of anything that's like anything that directly emulates stuff like 1942 or Raiden. But then again, so I was just watching video essays on Toho music, so that the descendants of that genre are still alive and well. And there's stuff like Cuphead too. I don't know if you count that as the same genre as like side-scrolling shooters. Or
I don't even think about. I don't even like to think about Cuphead because just I've watched people play Cuphead. I know if I play Cuphead, I will get so angry I have a fucking stroke.
yeah, I watched the Cuphead
Cuphead.
Netflix show. Have you seen it? Or do
No,
you?
but I heard it was like really weirdly baby.
Not
Like
really.
it literally attempts. Let me rephrase it. It attempts to emulate the shorts it was based off of.
Kind of. I mean, it just feels like it doesn't feel like video game media, even though it is very much video game media. It feels like just classic cartoons with a like modern, not modern style, but like modern smoothness of animation. It's well
Yeah,
done.
it was very disconcerting according to the people who watched it.
Huh. I don't know. I did not have that experience. I mean, I people are doing that nowadays. They released those new Mickey Mouse shorts, and those are really good. But I really did enjoy the Cuphead show. Like I wouldn't consider it my favorite show ever or anything, but I did genuinely like. I hear there's another season coming out, and I'm looking forward to watching it.
It's just so weird that they can't figure out what to do with all those old cartoon characters anymore. It's like, really? You can't just have them do shit? Like I don't understand how you're having trouble.
You mean like cartoon, like just
Bugs
actual
Bunny
old,
and
like
stuff.
yeah, copyright. It's who owns the copyright because they've been around for so long, and so many people have
No, no,
different
I
claims
mean
on different things.
whenever yeah, but it's like I don't see new Bugs Bunny stuff.
And that's why even though like people we know who owns Bugs Bunny now, there it has such history behind it that like nobody's willing to take any like risks on it. There's too many brands, too much brand identity based on it. And you do see the occasional
Well,
like didn't they
they did
do
taste
like they did
they
the
did like a sitcom thing.
yep, and it sucked. And they made a Space Jam reboot, which also sucked. And because they can't take any
I heard
risks.
people actually I heard people hated the sitcom thing at the time, but looking back, it's actually good.
There are a lot of shows that are like that. What was it? I was just thinking Star Wars prequels. The Star Wars prequels are not good movies, but they are fun movies. They're very fun to watch, even though I would never call them high cinema like I would like Episode 4. And there's a reason that people still like. There's a new meme that sweeps across the internet every couple months from the prequels right now. They still have an immense cultural impact. And that's not the sort of thing that like. And by prequels I mean Star Wars prequels, in case I didn't mention that. But like,
Hmm.
I like movies that don't resonate at all, even no matter how famous they like. The sequel trilogy doesn't have much of a cultural impact, even though it had a lot of very invested fans in its time. But the prequel trilogy has like an immense fan base that is still producing memes at a rapid clip.
Well, the fan base isn't because it's good, or rather, the things the fan base likes about the prequel trilogy are rather like the Clone Wars show or the Obi-Wan show that just came out or the books. Like
I
they're
mean,
not enjoying they're not enjoying the prequels because the prequels are good.
well, I mean,
When I
given,
watch the prequels, I watch the Riff Tracks version of the prequels because it's funny.
I mean,
Because I couldn't
that's how
sit
people
through
relate. that you don't watch the
I could not
prequels
sit
because
through the. Go ahead.
yeah, you don't watch the prequels because they're good movies. You watch them because they are very easily made into entertainment. And
Yes, that is very true. I agree with that.
that's why they produce memes, because they are weird and janky and messes. And I still genuinely like episode 3, but 1 and 2 were unsalvageable. But they are still entertaining in how doofy they are. And
Yes, that is very true.
they're not as they just weren't the original trilogy, and people ruined the lives of every actor that played Anakin in that series. And that was a big part of why I distanced myself from the expanded universe in the first place, after spending a huge chunk of my childhood face deep in it, just watching every movie come out. Because I was in that fandom for pretty much the in that span of time between the release of episode 1 and release of episode 3. And eventually I left because it was so gross. It was like I didn't want to be around those people anymore, even though I'd never been made to feel uncomfortable. It was just a weird that was not the sort of place I wanted to be.
Yeah, this is the end of the investigation mission. The game is over. We'll play again. See you in Tokyo, John.
Yeah. Well, at least they're not calling you Chuck yet. I do like. Well, actually, the spoilers. We can wait for Tokyo before I start talking about the Black Signal. But like, oh, and we're in Venice. I missed that. I never actually made it to Venice. Like, I'm not sure if Venice was even in the original. Like, as not, I think you could like go there for missions, but as a place you could go and look at lore.
It's when they added their virtual raids,
Hmm.
their virtual tower defense thingy.
Yeah. You really cannot use an MMO to do anything that requires any kind of fine tuning. And tower defense just is just on the slight edge of too finicky. It's just over the edge. I mean, you got to admire both their creativity and their balls, and just how much they experimented and added to this game. But the genre switch ups they tried usually didn't work. It's funny. Venice as a city is kind of fucked. That it's that. Do you know why it's sinking specifically?
It's built on mud.
Well, I mean, what it's actually built on is it was founded by a bunch of refugees who were basically fleeing inland Italy during the fall of the Roman Empire, and they sunk a bunch of logs into a lagoon and just built their shit on top of that. And those logs have now rotted away, so there is no foundation for the city, and it is just sinking into the muck because that's how the city was built, and they weren't thinking about anything and weren't putting too much planning into their future when they were doing it, because they were trying to like not be killed by Lombard raiders. So now nobody knows what to do, and because Italy is Italy and Italian politics are like the same as just about everywhere in the Western world, there's a huge like far right group that has a lot of power, that's controls a lot of the government, and doesn't want to care about climate change even as the city floods. And people make fun of them and nothing happens.
You just made yourself sad, didn't you?
Yeah, that's politics. That's modern politics. But at least,
Okay,
and we're gonna.
so there's one last mission in this area before we've completed all the missions in this area, save for the one that is from another area that brings us back here. And that's to close out all these mummies' tombs.
I will say this will date the video, but we are currently watching a right-wing government collapse in Britain in the funniest way possible, and I'm just eating
Oh,
popcorn,
yes.
watching them get their comeuppance. It is the best.
Well, you say collapse. What's going to happen is someone even worse than Boris will take over, lead them into an election, win because Labour is currently terrible, and things are going to get worse.
I mean, yeah. Though,
But on the bright side, they are British, so they do deserve it.
bonus. But like, I do hear that the Tories hate each other so much that they're not gathering behind anyone, and they may not gather behind anyone, try and split the vote, and that will deliver to who knows that if they split the vote, that will be enough to give it to Labour. Sucks. Labour isn't great, but a Tory
I think
party, a
isn't
Conservative
great
party
is
that
a bit of an
splits several
understatement.
ways can't just does not have that kind of numbers.
It's gonna be the worst choice. It's gonna be Patel.
Don't I don't know.
It's gonna be deport my own parents, Patel.
It's who even knows it. I don't even want to speculate. I don't want to speak things into existence. But yeah, this God even knows. Such is life, I guess. And I don't even have time to talk about, this is not a very respectful portrayal of mummies. That's not actually how they worked. But, well, because, like, I don't know,
It fits in with horror movies, though.
yeah, horror movies.
This is straight out of horror movies.
Oh, yeah. But, like, in reality, these would all be, like, hunched over old, middle-aged people, middle-class people, if they were buried like this. And this would, like...
Just my dad in wrappings.
Yeah, pretty much. Like mummified pot with the pot belly still attached. Like, they wouldn't be terribly... They wouldn't be these lean killing machines. They'd be just sort of waddling at you really, really fast.
That's still kind of horrifying.
I mean, yeah, there are plenty of zombies in video games that do exactly that. They just give them lots of health, but these would not be particularly terrifying looking or moving.
And with that, we are done with Scorched Desert. We go to City of the Sun God. The next video we will be doing City of the Sun God. Now this episode ends with me just sort of standing there because I'm looking on my phone trying to determine if I've missed a mission. And I find out that no, it triggers when I do a mission in City of the Sun God that sends me back to Scorched Desert. So enjoy the rest of the video, which is me sitting behind this lady. Or man, or whoever it is.
Firecracker.
They have cat ears. They have cat ear headphones. They're a weeb.
So, as are we all. Someday I'll talk about how my grandma was also a weeb before the term existed. But that's another story for another time. I can't fit it in 51 seconds, or I don't know, 47.
Well, I've been Mycroft Holmes.
And I have also been Falconeer 111.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time in City of the Sun God.